Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the Ashes so far, the tests in Brisbane, Adelaide and finally the MCG. So we are going to talk about England's batting, Australia's batting, England's bowling and Australia's bowling. So looking at all four of the plays in the cricket. We are going to look at some positives from all of those things, and we're also going to look at ways in which they can improve. So if you like this kind of content, please feel free, drop it a like, drop a comment, let me know your kind of opinions on what you think's going to happen with the next two tests, both in Sydney and Hobart. Is it going to be a whitewash or England going to bounce back? Also share this video, really gets other people involved as well, and helps me out, so cheers. Now, so what my kind of opinion is only my opinion. Again, I'm not a cricket expert, not trying to be. I'm just trying to give you guys my opinion from kind of like a local guy, and trying to see what you guys kind of think as well, because I want to see what everybody thinks about this, because it's really been such a dominant performance by Australia at the moment, and England are going to bounce back. At the end of this video, we're also going to look at how England can improve heading into 2023 back at their place in their summer, and how they can kind of, either win there or they can kind of get a draw, because at the moment the talent between both sides is just too far of a gap for, even that advantage that they're going to have at home with obviously the Barmy Army. I don't think it's going to be enough with the way the two current squads are. So let's break down the first test, the second test and the third test. So the first test was in Adelaide it was in Brisbane, sorry, and Australia won by 9 wickets. This was pretty comfortable for Australia. Mitchell Starc set the tone by taking a wicket with the first ball, which was pretty cool. Got up and around. He just looked class in that first opening spell, and really set the tone that England weren't going to have much of a chance in this series. Obviously, there's still two tests to be played, but Australia are looking really dominant at the moment. And England really struggled to get runs, especially in that first test. In the second innings, I think they got close to 300, but in that first innings in Brisbane, they really struggled, and that was really due to Australia's bowling, which we'll get into later. But again, they only had like 30 runs to chase down in that second innings, Australia, and they only lost, I think it was Alex Carey, with like a couple of runs to go. So that was in Brisbane. In Adelaide, it looked a lot better from England's kind of point of view. Even though Australia still won comfortably, England put up more of a fight, especially with the ball. I think they looked a lot better with the ball, especially with Broad and Anderson being included. We're going to touch on that as well, and kind of the selection issues that are going on with England and what my opinions are with that. And then finally in Melbourne, it was the Scottie Bowen test. Absolutely pumped. I was excited. I was gassed. He was awesome, especially being a Victorian myself. It was awesome to see, Scottie get his first, test cap, obviously being, one of a few only Indigenous players, and then the way he performed, getting 6 for 7 in the second innings was awesome to watch. And it was awesome to watch on TV, the kind of crowd buzz that he kind of brought, especially on day 2 and day 3. So let's get into Australia's bowling. Again, like I said, they really set the tone with a really good line and length. So they didn't give England too many free balls, especially with their opening partners, whether that's Crawley, Hamid, and Burns. Like they didn't really stand a chance with that opening ball. And it's not that the ball was really swinging for the Aussies or getting too much seam. It was more down to the fact that they were just on fourth stump, constantly. They didn't give you too many loose balls. Normally Starc will. Normally Starc gives you a few looseners early on. He was actually pretty good, and he's probably been the pick of the bowlers with, Cummins getting off for the Adelaide test because of the COVID scare, and Hazelwood also being injured. He's probably been the pick of the bowlers because he's played all 3 tests, and he kind of took a leadership role, especially in that test in Adelaide. where he took, I think it was like 6+ wickets for the test, which was really good. Also, Australia's depth with our bowling has been another positive. Joe Richardson came in with 5 wickets in Adelaide, and obviously Scott Bowen in Melbourne with the 6 for 7. So, and Michael Neser, forgot about Michael Neser. He also came in and gave us a little bit of a different look coming in. Also could score a few runs as well. So he was another guy that really gave Australia another element, as well as Chris Greene, who's, our number 6. He can, bowl the ball, in the 140s, mid 140s, which also is another, dimension to Australia's attack, which really has troubled the English batters. The only real success has been Joe Root, but we'll get on to England's batting in a moment. We'll move on to England's bowling, and this is where they've been, pretty good in my opinion. I think they've looked better when they're bowled than when they're batted, and I think, having Broad and Anderson out in Brisbane was a big blow. I'm not sure if they were physically fit. I think that one of them at least needed to play just to be a bit of a tone setter, just to have a little bit of a backbone to that lineup. It really was disappointing looking at their lineup, that if you weren't somebody that watches England cricket, like, you're not really going to know who Robinson is, you're not really going to know who Mark Wood would have been, because he has only played a few tests. Like, of Chris Wokes, of Jack Leach, but their just lineup didn't really have that guy that was like, okay, that's their danger man, that's their guy that's going to take 5 wickets and really trouble Australia's batters. They didn't have that in Brisbane, and then they've looked better in both Adelaide and in the MCG. They looked really good with their bowling. They didn't bowl as short, they bowled more full. Again, I think Joe Root can set more attacking fields. I think he's a very defensive captain, which is kind of the opposite to the way Australia play. Australia play really aggressive with their fields, whether it's Steve Smith as captain or Pat Cummins, as we're seeing for the Melbourne Test and the Brisbane Test. They play really attacking and really, relentless with their fields when they're bowling. So I think that Joe Root can really take a leaf out of Australia's book in terms of the way that he goes about, captaining and fielding, where, they've missed opportunities, whether that's with catches or runouts. They have really struggled to take opportunities when they're being presented, because Australia's batting, and we'll get onto that in a bit, hasn't been the best. Warner, Labuschagne and I think Head have been the 3 best batters for Australia. Obviously, Head got the 150 in Brisbane, but other than that, Head hasn't been really good. But Warner and Labuschagne have been their 2 best batters, or our two best batters, I should say. Whereas like Smith, Marcus Harris, who am I missing, Cameron Greene, as our predominant batters, haven't really stepped up. It's a bit surprising how Smith hasn't really batted well, and that's no disrespect on the type of batter that he is, because he's a great batter. He just hasn't performed at a level that we know Steve Smith can perform at. And Marcus Harris has had his struggles, especially in the Ashes with the record and stuff, but I think that he's starting to turn it around a bit. In Melbourne, he got like 70 odd. So hopefully he can turn it around heading into the last 2 tests and maybe make a big one. Cameron Greene, I think he's still, put up with that. I think that the batting will come. His bowling, he can just play as a bowler at the moment. The way that he's bowling, he's really troubling, especially, Joe Root, who's, seems to be struggling against him. So I would just keep him as a bowler and just hope that the batting starts to, continuously improve. He's still only like 22, so you keep him. If you're Australia, you don't give up on him. You keep persisting. He's probably going to be a future captain if I have to put a bet on it. After probably Paddy or somebody might be a temporary captain, whereas Cam Greene can be a really long-term guy. I think he's not really the talkative bloke, but I think in terms of his skill level, he's somebody that you've got to look at. And the tail is wagged for Australia. That's been another positive. Like, whether that's been Mitchell Starc, whether that's been Nathan Lyon coming in as a night watchman in Australia, have gotten runs and healthy runs where they've had like an 80-run lead or a 100-plus run lead, where it's put pressure on the England batters. We're going to talk about England's batting. It's been very subpar. Only really Joe Root has been their best batter. He's constantly carried that lineup, whether it's getting 50s, but he hasn't gone on to get that big 100 that I think he will in either Sydney or Hobart. I think he will. He obviously should, given the type of player that he is and the type of captain that he is. He should lead. But Milan and who else has put up runs? Oh, Stokes to an extent, but I don't really think Stokes has performed at the level that he normally does with the bat. I don't know if there's an injury there, whether he's still injured from an injury back in the England summer, but really have struggled throughout the whole year. There's obviously been the talks of the ducks that they've gotten, whether that's with Rory Burns, whether that's throughout their whole batting lineup. I think it's like they're close to the record, or they got the record in Melbourne with their ducks. So it's been really disappointing to see the kind of effort that they're putting up with the bat. Only high score of, I think it was high score of 295, I want to say, in Brisbane in that second innings. It's just not good enough against an Australian bowling attack, an Australian batting attack that, our batting hasn't really been at the best, but our bowling attack's been really good, and it's really helped us kind of win those games, because we've only put up, I think, one or two 400 plus scores, which is good, but you expect a little bit better from Australia's batting attack. But it's, you give a little bit of leeway, but again, I think that they really need to look at their red ball cricket back in England and see how they can improve that red ball cricket. So these are kind of how I think I can see them improving looking into 2023. I think they need to find a spinner and just stick with the spinner. Stick with him. Just stick with him. Find him as a consistent spinner. He can just either be a leggy or an offie, and just stick with him. Back him, give him confidence, and then see where it goes. Same with opening pair. Pick an opening pair, stick to it. If it's a young opening pair with the Mead and Crawley, and you just stick to it for like 6 months, give him confidence, give him the praise, give them the backing that, okay, all right, we think you two are the guys that are going to score runs for us. Instead of, chopping and changing. They've chopped and changed way too much in this series, whether it's their bowling or their batting attack. And then they need to let the ball go as well. Too many times they've nicked off on 5th stump or 4th stump. They really need to work on letting go of the ball, especially with that new ball, whether that is their openers or David Milan or Joe Root. They really need to learn how to let go of that ball and just, take it. Just take it, because at the moment there hasn't been really a test that's gone into day 5 seriously. So yeah, that's kind of how I think they can improve heading into 2023, but they're going to need a lot more to improve if they're going to be able to be successful, in a year and a half's time. So that is kind of my analysis of how the Ashes have gone so far. I think that Australia have been really dominant and England have been really subpar. Again, if you have liked this video, please drop it a like, subscribe for more. I will try to get more content and be a little bit more consistent. Cheers, see ya, bye.